Hey guys, welcome to my movie review of the Honeymoon, which is a kind of horror movie slash romantic holiday kind of movie. It's really interesting to see, like, how the two mix.
And then their spiral into madness.
And then, yes, their descent into utter horribleness that is an alien invasion of the body.
It's more complicated than just that.
In the beginning, it starts with a married couple
Videoing their
recording things to play at their wedding. The female lead, Beatrix, is talking about how her husband Paul proposed to her, and
their plan was to go camping, and
yeah,
she was sick, so
their plan was to go camping, and she was sick, and he built a tent on their bed, and they camped out on their bed, and it was a very touching scene, very cute.
That's when he proposed.
That's how he proposed to her, and then he went, and then it cuts from that to them at B's cottage in family cottage in some,
like a summer house or something.
Yeah, like a summer house in some
middle of nowhere.
rural part of America. Anyway, it cuts from that. They get settled in. They go out on a boat. Paul is not really
he's very flirty.
Yeah, he's that, and also he's not really as country or manly as B turns out to be. She talks about catching frogs and using them as live bait, and how they scream while you're casting them, which is a very strange scene, but it kind of adds tension, in a way. But
soon after that, the next morning they go to a restaurant.
Yeah, they go to a restaurant called Restaurant.
Their specialty is food.
Yeah, and Beatrix adds in the line, their specialty is food, and they go in and meet kind of secondary characters. They're
a childhood friend of Beatrix.
Not really important characters, but yeah, a childhood friend of Beatrix his name is Will.
When you see him, he's having some sort of angry tantrum.
When they come into the restaurant, they see Will throwing lamps and kicking walls, and just everything is in disarray. The lights are flickering.
They have a short argument or something, and then his wife is introduced, and he's a little rough with her.
They have, like, it's not I would say an altercation, more than anything. It's really, they come in, he screams at them to leave. They say they're leaving. He then recognizes B as a childhood friend of his, who he remembers, and he seems really relieved to see B after all this time. But they speak a little bit. His wife is introduced. She looks a little worse for wear. She's pale. Her eyes are sunken in. Her eyes. She's tired looking. She just looks like she needs some rest. She looks very, very sick. That's what Will says. He says she just isn't feeling like herself today. But later,
this is when tension really starts to build.
This is when the horror part of the honeymoon starts to come out and be more apparent.
It's still a really cute romantic movie.
Up until this point, it's been a cute romantic movie. They go fishing, or they don't go fishing. They go swimming, or they're about to, but the water is too cold. And let's see, what else happens? What else happens between that and going to the restaurant?
Nothing terribly important.
I don't think anything like really big happens up until the night that they sleep. The next night they sleep.
No, the night before that there was still the light.
The night before that.
The restaurant.
The night before, The night before the restaurant. All right, that's right. I didn't remember the light.
No, no.
There was a strange, like, light beam that shines.
Almost like a high-powered flashlight being shined in through each of the windows in the cottage.
Exactly, like a spotlight being shined in, looking around. And I don't think Beatrix wakes up then.
Not the
First night. Okay, I don't think she doesn't. She doesn't wake up the first night. She ends up waking up to it the second night when it happens, and she is that when
Will is waking up by her absence and quite worried to find that she's not there.
He starts to panic and runs out of the house screaming for her and yelling that she needs to come back, and I think she just pops up out of nowhere.
She just finds her sitting by a fallen tree.
That's right. She's just hanging out. No, he sees her in the woods. He sees her in the woods, and she's like standing there, covering her face.
That's right.
And then he goes to tap on her.
Her nightgown is missing.
She jumps up and screams, and the nightgown she was wearing the night before has mysteriously gone missing and is nowhere to be found. But after that, this is when things really start to take a turn for the horror aspect of the film. Usually
she starts forgetting small things after that, like how to make French toast.
She forgets how to make French toast.
Coffee.
She forgets how to make coffee. She just poured water into a coffee pot and just left it. She says, "Will, I made coffee." And he's like, "Thanks." And then he pours it into his coffee cup, and it's just water. So there's no real coffee or anything to it. It's just water that she poured into it. But after that,
I gotta admit, I wasn't terribly suspicious of this.
No, I thought it was just like she was freaking out because she was sleepwalking. She didn't have a very good night's rest. So I thought she's tired, whatever. I don't think Will was even suspicious at this point. I think he was
just worried.
I think he was just like, well, we need to get you some like medication for your sleepwalking probably. And but at that point, that's when things start to look down in the terms of
their relationship.
Not the relationship.
Not at this point, I guess.
The stability of their, what would you call it? The stability of their like living together, because she starts forgetting things and hiding things from Will, even though like before they ever came to the cottage, they didn't hide anything from each other. They told each other everything.
She'd never sleepwalked before.
No, she's never sleepwalked before. I feel like Will was a little bit suspicious on that part.
Yeah.
About her not ever sleepwalking before or anything. But other than that, he really trusted her on everything up until, what would you say? Up until like she starts like turning a little bit pale, and then
she started turning pale, and she jumped in the water.
She jumped in the ice cold water out of nowhere. For no apparent reason.
She'd stopped laughing at his jokes and was refusing him when he tried to...
Refusing his advances. When before she was completely open to anything. And then, after that, what would you say? What would you say heightened the tension a little bit more? Would you say it was when, I'm trying to really think of...
I think that's when he noticed the sores on her legs.
That is when he noticed the sores on her legs. He noticed there were 3 sores on each of the insides of her thighs. 3, they were in a kind of curve.
She said they were bug bites.
She said they were mosquito bites. Considering they were...
did not look like mosquito bites.
But they weren't. They were like yellowish sores looking.
They looked infected.
And they were infected.
At least.
And they were all in like an arch on both of her thighs in the same exact place on each leg. But other than that, like, he started to be worried. He went to the woods where he found her. I think that's when he went to the woods.
That's when he found the nightgown.
That's when he found the nightgown covered in the goo.
There was a weird webby, gooey fluid on the nightgown.
That's when he went to find her and went to find that.
By this point, she was forgetting some of her vocabulary, like suitcase and...
Yeah, she couldn't... She said she just needed sleep, so she said she was
gonna go take a sleep.
Instead of saying she was gonna go take a nap, she said she was gonna go take a sleep. She started forgetting vocabulary. She's forgetting many things.
more major things than just how to make French toast.
She's really forgetting more of like being Beatrix, than anything at this point. She really, what would you say?
At this point, she only remembered the basics of her relationship with Paul.
She remembered that Paul, her name is Beatrix.
Her husband is Paul.
Her husband is Paul. That is what she.
Soon after Paul walks in on her, writing down basic information about herself in a small notebook.
Like her home address, or her birth date.
Her home is New York. Her favorite color is blue.
Favorite color. Her name, her husband's name, the fact that Paul is her husband. She was just writing down basic information about herself and about her life in a little notebook that she had. And I think at this point is when
Paul gets
super suspicious, and that's when he brings back the nightgown. He brings back the nightgown, and then
they get into an
argument, and he tells her to put on the nightgown, and that's when she says she
put it with her dirty clothes.
She put it in
the clothes box.
Dirty clothes in the clothes box, which she means the suitcase, but she's forgetting more and more of what she knows and what is. She starts forgetting drastic things, and then I think at this point is when Paul goes to see Will, or he goes to talk to Will because he believes that Will had forced himself upon B, and he goes to confront Will, but when he gets there,
the restaurant is locked.
The restaurant's locked, but he sees Will's wife, Annie. He sees her working
with ropes and an anchor on a dock.
Going to a boat on a dock with ropes and an anchor, and he sees she trips. He helps her up, and he sees the same.
She's talking about you should have left.
You should have left.
We're going to hurt you.
Yeah, she says we're going to hurt you, and then she falls and she stands up, and he sees the same marks on her legs.
And it's after this that he finds Will's lucky hockey hat.
Will's hat with
a blood stain.
With a moderately large blood stain on the side of it. And
moderately is a bit of a...
It's really at that point that he really begins to
worry.
Want to confront B on what exactly is going on, what exactly is happening. So he heads back, grabs a journal.
No, it's at this point that he goes into the restaurant.
Is it? Okay, he goes into the restaurant. He sees the camera. He looks at the
he sees the same writing, my name is Annie, my husband is Will, on papers in the
diner.
Restaurant. And there's the same sticky, gooey fluid on some of the papers.
And he sees...
At this point, Annie and B are getting increasingly pale and gray skin.
Very pale and gray. And he goes and looks at the CCTV footage that Will has, because he has a camera set up around, because he owns a small restaurant, so he has to keep cameras up around. He has those up around, and
in the footage he sees Annie and the same bright white light.
He sees Annie in the same bright light shining, and Annie walks into it, and then at that point the computer explodes and sparks fly everywhere.
The electricity starts shorting out.
So Paul leaves immediately, but behind him you can see the silhouette of
a figure,
a quote-unquote person, which I think it's supposed to be the alien.
The main antagonists.
The main antagonists are the aliens, yeah. If you hadn't already had guessed that it was aliens. But I just assumed it was Will when I first saw it, honestly. I was like, well, I don't know, maybe he's there, like, about to attack him or something. But no. Paul leaves. He goes back to his cottage. Then he grabs a notebook and starts confronting B on how her and Annie have never...
Then she says... Then he shows her the nightgown that he found not in the suitcase.
Yeah, that he found in the woods. But before that, he confronts Annie on how... B on how her and Annie are doing things doing the same things, even though neither of them have met one another, like, ever. They couldn't have been doing the same things just out of habit. And then he reads the notebook. He has her tell him things about herself, and she's just reciting them from memory so he can read back to her what she's about to say, because she's written it all in the notebook. And at that point, the argument upscales into a fight, a full-blown fight, which leads to well, what did it lead to? Does it lead to him
That
tying?
led to the night they slept apart.
They slept apart. That's right. They slept apart, and then they both wanted it to be okay. So they tried to work it out, which ended up with B in the bathroom trying to perform an abortion on herself, or what seems to be one. And it really is a very gruesome scene. A lot of blood, not a very happy scene. But it goes from that.
That's when Will
to him tying
Paul.
her. Paul ties her to the bed and starts questioning her on it. And
It's then that she tells him that the aliens had somehow she started talking in what really didn't make sense, really short lip sentences.
Yeah,
you have to get it out, stuff like that.
the thing, she just kept repeating, "Help me, please help me."
And this is when her flesh started turning into webby,
A weird,
goo.
webby, netty kind of gooey substance, and then Paul removes a long snake-like abomination from out of.
I'm trying to think of an animal I could compare it to.
It's not. It just looks like a tentacle off of an octopus that's been cut off and given like little smaller tentacles as a head. He removes it from Beatrix, and he immediately has a panic attack, leaves the room, leaves Beatrix still tied up with the small alien.
The small alien
Like
thing starts shrieking
snapping at her,
violently.
yelling. It most likely is dead now. I don't
In
know.
the end, there's a scene where the camera pans from place to place,
Mm.
and on the bed, covered in blood, is the small alien spawn.
Okay, so it died. It's not coming back, obviously, but
She manages to free herself from the bonds somehow.
she manages to free herself from
And
being.
this is when she starts talking about when she was sleepwalking, she saw a light and was drawn towards it. All she could see were the dark silhouettes of the aliens' bodies, their dark bodies. And she could feel them inside of her. She could still feel them inside of her.
At this point is when Will
Starts
freaking out,
looking for keys
looking
so
for the
they
car
can
keys
leave
so they can leave.
soon.
and she just like goes into a conniption on stopping him from finding the car keys, stopping him from getting out, because they'll end up killing him, they'll end up hurting him, they'll take him away. She just wants these last few days to be okay. She knows she's out of time. She knows she's not going to make it. She just wanted these last few days to be okay. She just wanted their honeymoon to end happily before she had to go with the aliens or whatever happened. But
It's at this point that she decides that she has to hide him.
yeah, at this point she decides that she has to hide Will where none of the aliens can find him. She then smacks him
Over the head with the camera on which they recorded their videos.
I wish they recorded their videos for their honeymoonish type setup, or their like wedding video kind of thing. They recorded it on that.
Then
And
Paul
then-
awakens in a boat tied to an anchor in the lake.
In the lake, and Beatrix is talking about how she has to hide him.
At
and
this
how he'll
point,
be-
she has very webby
webby,
disgusting skin.
gooey skin. And at this point is when she says she has to hide him and that he'll be safe under the water. And then Paul immediately freaks out and is like, "No, Beatrix, I can't hide under the water. I can't breathe under the water." And she says, "You'll be okay," and pushes the anchor off into the water. And there's enough rope that Paul has enough time. Well, he doesn't realize it until she pushes the anchor into the water and then looks at the rope connected to his legs, that she is going to push him into the water and make him sink to the bottom of the lake. He does not realize this until she pushes the anchor into the lake. And he pleads with her to not do this, not push him into the water, not make him drown, because he can't survive under the water. She just doesn't know this. She's just gone so far off the deep end that
It was
it
before
doesn't
this
matter.
that she explained that the aliens were taking her. They were
taking
taking memories, taking what was essentially Beatrix.
and
But she could remember what the aliens knew.
she knew what she said was she knew what they knew, and she knew that they were in trouble and that they were about to be done with. So what she did was hid Paul in a sense from the aliens
At the bottom of the lake.
at the bottom of the lake. Oh, they really never found him. I'll give her credit where credit's due. But that, and after that, it cuts back to Beatrix in the house, and there's a knock on the
Annie
door,
knocks on the door.
and Beatrix opens it, and it's Annie. They both have horribly webby skin. It looks like spider webs, and
Yellowed eyes.
the yellowed eyes and nasty. They're all bloody, they're dirty. They could not be worse for wear in this situation. And that's when the music starts to rise up, the
Lights
shrieking
start
violin,
flashing.
the lights start flashing, the dark silhouettes come back. Beatrix and Annie
Walk
walk
towards
towards
them.
them, and then it cuts to the
Cuts to
credits.
black.
So, in my opinion,
It was a good movie.
it was a stand-up cinematographic, cinematographic piece of art, in my opinion. But some of the dialogue
It
throughout
was
throughout the movie, it was clunky.
questionable.
It was
in
clunky,
places.
and I didn't enjoy the argument scenes.
Mostly during the flirting.
The flirting and the argument scenes were very clunky. They seemed like they were just
Sounded
thrown in there.
scripted.
They seemed like they were just thrown in there. They were reading off a script. They didn't sound. Most of the movie, they sound completely sincere with everything they're saying. But
They were great actors.
the argument scenes and the flirtation scenes are what seemed the most faked and not really sincere. Most of the time they were just sounded like they were reading off a script, or they were reciting lines that they were being told or something. Most of the time they really didn't put their soul into those parts, except for like the bigger argument scenes. That's when
Near the end.
the bigger argument scenes near the end, because the argument scenes where the one where he stole the notebook and started getting her to recite the memories, it just felt like he was just reading stuff off. It didn't really feel
Technically
like,
he was.
oh, I mean, technically he was, but it felt like he was just reading stuff off of like a script that was written in the
It
book.
didn't sound as emotional as it could.
No. The argument scene at the end where he's looking for the keys, I like
That-
those scenes because there was a lot of emotion in them, but it just repeated the same phrase over and over. They didn't add anything. It really was just a big plot dump. In the beginning and the end is when they gave you all the plot, because in the middle it was just leading up to the end. Like they didn't slowly add more things to it. They really never gave anything away right until the end, and that really annoys me, honestly.
They threw it way at you. Little bits in the beginning and all of it in the end.
They gave you
They give
you really nothing in the beginning other than they were married, they were on a honeymoon, the basic things. The middle, it was just them flirting and meeting Will, arguing. Meeting Will was the only like major plot
massive
point
plot.
in the middle of the movie. Other than that, it was all at the end, all past the 15-minute mark, where she she was
Started exhibiting physical signs.
she started
of
bleeding. She started bleeding. She started forgetting things. That was another big part.
That was.
There was a couple in the middle. I take back what I said. There was a couple in the middle, but it was mostly beginning and end, where they gave you some stuff. There was a few things in the middle, but then after that, it really, after like the 20-minute mark, I would say, it really just slowed down into this is what they are. This is what they're gonna do, and then after the 50-minute mark, after like she started getting into things about like she started bleeding and started because around the 40-minute mark, as I would say, is when Paul found the dots
Sores.
on her thighs, and she had like sores on her ankles and weird bite-looking marks around her legs and stuff. But all in all, it was a really good film, in my opinion. I gotta say that it really stood out for me because, like, I've
Even
seen
with the cliche alien.
even with the alien, it was aliens. You're impregnated with an alien kind of thing. It really stood out for me in the sense that
I've never heard of aliens taking someone's identity. That was.
It was a really good idea, and I really think it was executed in a good way.
Incredible in practice as much as theory.
I think all in all, it really surprised me how good these two actors were at like emotion like hardcore emotions, not like flirt.
Truly felt sincere. The anger.
The fear,
passion.
the fear that Paul.
Why would he calling him Will?
I don't know. The fear that Paul gave off during the end sequences in the beginning, or not the beginning, the end sequences and up until his untimely death, really felt real, and it was really jarring to hear him plead to his wife, who days before had been his wife, and they were swimming and they were laughing and they were flirting.
Truly a match made in heaven.
It really was. It disturbed me deeply that this had to happen. That she wasn't his wife anymore.
Drastic change.
She wasn't his wife anymore. She was just a holding place for alien spawn. It really is just a sad tale. Anything left to add?
I'm not really a fan of horror movies, but this one, it's gonna hold a special place in my memory. That's for certain.
Alright, if that's all you got, thank you for tuning in to this podcast / movie review / // But thank you for tuning in, and if you guys like this, I may do another review. Possibly horror movie, possibly something else. Okay, I'm gonna sign off.